In this video, you are going to learn how to create this fully functional calculator using JavaScript. All the code developed in this video is freely available, and the link is in the description. I have the project folder already set up, inside it, a background image included. Let's start by creating a HTML file, called index, followed by a CSS file, and lastly, a JavaScript file. Inside the head element, let's add the title for this project. Link the CSS file, mine being styles. Go ahead and also link the script file, in this case, it's the script. Before we go any further, let's have this opened in a browser. It has nothing so far. Moving on, let's select a font for the calculator. Inside the fonts.google.com, I will search for the famous outfit font. For all elements on the page, we will remove any default margin that browsers might apply. We'll also remove the default padding. Set the box sizing to border box, to ensure that the padding and border are included in the element's total width and height, preventing unexpected sizing issues. For the font family, set the primary font to outfit. In case it's not available, sans serif will be used. Back in the HTML, let's create the body. First, create a div with class wrapper which will serve as a container for our calculator. I will go ahead and give it some style, but before it, let's have some styles for the body. First, make it a flexbox container. Then horizontally center all the content within it. Center the content vertically. This will ensure that the content is perfectly centered both horizontally and vertically. Ensure it takes up at least the full height of the viewport. For the background, we'll specify the path to the image, called BG. And it should not repeat itself. For the background size, set it to cover, ensuring it covers the entire area of the element. Finally, center the image both horizontally and vertically. Back to the wrapper, I want it to have a border of 2 pixels which is solid and of RGBA color mode. For RGB, I want it to be white. And for the alpha value, I want it to have an opacity of 20%. Add a fixed width of 420 pixels. Give it a padding of 30 pixels on the top and bottom, and 40 pixels on the left and right. I will give it a transparent background. Then add a backdrop filter to blur the content behind the element by 9 pixels, creating a frosted glass effect. I will finally make the corners of this element rounded with a border radius of 12 pixels, and the text color inside this element to white. Inside the wrapper, let's add another div with class calculator. Inside it, we will have a div with class display. In the display, let's add an input with ID, calculator display. Remember the input type is text. We will add a disabled attribute to ensure that users can't type directly into this display. It will only show the output of our calculations. So now, let's style this calculator. Set its width to take up the full width of its parent container. Then add a 20 pixel margin at the top of the calculator, creating some space above it. For the display section, add a 20 pixel margin at the bottom of it. For the calculator display, ensure that it takes up the full width of its container. Set the height of the display to 50 pixels. Increase the size of the text inside the display to 2 times the default size, making it easily readable. Align the text to the right side of the display. This is common in calculators, where numbers typically align to the right. Add a 10 pixels of padding inside the display, creating space between the text and the edges of the display area. Remove any default border. Add a border radius of 5 pixels to round the corners. Set the color of the text inside it to white. Lastly, we need a background color. Let's use this RGBA. By using these properties, we've successfully styled the display of our calculator, making it both functional and attractive. Moving on, let's now create the buttons. Below this div, we will create another div with class buttons. We will have a button with class btn. Text displayed on the button will be C. We will add an on-click event that calls the clear display function. Let's now duplicate these to come up with some more buttons. The second button deletes the last character from the display, therefore add an on-click event that calls the delete character function. And it will display a left arrow symbol. The third button adds a division symbol to the display, therefore it will have an on-click event that calls append to display the division symbol. And it will display the division symbol. The fourth button adds a multiplication symbol to the display, therefore it will have an on-click event that calls append to display the multiplication symbol. Let's add some styles to this btn. Add 20 pixels of padding inside each button. Set the size of the text inside the buttons to 1.5 times the default size. Remove any default border around the buttons. Round the corners of the buttons with a 5 pixel radius. Also add a background, similar to the one for the display section. Set the text color inside the buttons to white. Change the cursor to a pointer when a user hovers over the buttons. Add a smooth hover transition effect for the background color, which will take 0.3 seconds, and it will be smooth. When the button is hovered, it will have the same background as above, but this one will have a 40% transparency. For the buttons container, set the display to grid. And for the grid template columns, let's create 4 equal width columns. Then add a gap of 10 pixels between the grid items, both horizontally and vertically. By using these properties, we've arranged the buttons in a clean, responsive grid layout. Each button occupies an equal amount of space, and there is a consistent gap between them. Let's now add more buttons. We are now done with the styling. Let us now add the specific functionality in JavaScript. We will start with the append to display function, which is responsible for adding characters to the display. We start with the function definition append to display, which takes a parameter called value. Inside the function, we first obtain a reference to the calculator display element by calling document.getElementById and passing it the ID calculator display. We store this reference in a constant named display. Next, we update the value of the display by appending the new value to the existing display.value. This way, each time a user presses a button on the calculator, the corresponding value gets added to the display, allowing the user to build their desired input step by step. Next up, we need to enable this C to clear the calculator's display. We start with the function clearDisplay. Inside it, we use document.getElementById to locate the element, with the ID calculator display. This element represents the screen of our calculator where numbers and operations are shown. Then set the value property of this display element to an empty string. By doing this, it effectively clears any existing text or numbers from the display, providing the user with a fresh start for their next calculation. Next, let's enable this function, which is designed to delete the last character from the calculator's display. Inside this function, the first step is to get a reference to the calculator's display element. We use the document.getElementById method to locate the element by its ID, calculator display. Next, we'll need to update the display's value to remove the last character. We can achieve this by using the slice method on the display's current value. The slice method will allow us to create a new string that excludes the last character. This function will effectively remove the last character from the calculator display, allowing users to correct any mistakes easily. Finally, let's create a function which will allow our calculator to evaluate and display the result of the mathematical expression entered by the user. We'll start by defining our function. Inside this function, we'll use document.getElementById to locate the element with the ID calculator display. In the try block, we use the eval function to evaluate the expression in display.value, and then we assign the result back to display.value. If an error occurs during evaluation, the catch block is executed, setting display.value to the string error to inform the user that something went wrong. The calculate result function evaluates the mathematical expression entered by the user and updates the display with the result. If an error occurs, it displays an error message instead. I hope you found this tutorial helpful and that you now feel confident in creating your own web-based calculator. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a thumbs up and consider subscribing to my channel for more coding tutorials and tips. Feel free to leave any questions or comments down below, and let me know what other projects you'd like to see. Thanks for watching, and happy coding!